When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at accenture.com/Spotify.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nerding Out on Neurodiversity, the podcast for all things neurodivergence. I'm Dr. Matt Zakreski, clinical psychologist and professional speaker, and I'm happy to be your host through the wild trails of the neurodivergent world.
And I'm Jake Noonan, educational coach and humanities teacher, your co-host and producer, and I'm thrilled to help share the stories and the experiences of wonderful people in the world of neurodiversity.
We're really excited for today's guest, which we are going to say a lot because we're always really excited about every guest we get. So let's get into it. Let's do it. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Nerding Out on Neurodiversity. I'm your host, Dr. Matt Zakreski, clinical psychologist, professional speaker, published author, wearer of many hats, including co-hosting this illustrious podcast with the fabulous Mr. Jake Noonan. Today, I'm going to introduce him as the Gino to my Coach Hurley. And our guests think that's hilarious, but Jake has no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I have no clue. When you said Gino, my thought first went towards like Super Mario RPG.
Oh, wow. Not even Pat's and Geno's, not even a Philly rep.
Not even Pat's and Geno's, because I don't go to Pat's and Geno's. They're like the places you don't go.
Because nobody who lives in Philly goes to Pat's and Geno's, right?
Ever.
The correct answer is Jim's. It's on South Street. It's great.
100%.
So, see, the University of Connecticut in beautiful, bucolic Storrs, Connecticut, has a basketball dynasty in both men's and women's college basketball. Gino Auriemma is the women's coach. He's won more championships than anybody ever. And Coach Hurley is the coach of the men's team now. They've won 2 championships. But of course, we could also say, I think Kevin Ollie won one, and it was
Jim Calhoun.
That was like an angry guy. Old school Big East basketball there's nothing like it. So sports. Yes, of course. But, if we're talking about the Mount Rushmore of UConn, we would, of course, have our guests today. And Jake, when you were little and you'd be out in the community and you'd see a teacher and you'd be like, "Oh, hello, Mrs. Johnson." And they'd be like, "I'm not a teacher anymore. You can call me Sally." And I'd be like, "No way, Mrs. Johnson."
Yes, all too often.
Our guests today, I will never not refer to them by their formal doctorate names, even though they tell me all the time that to call them Joe and Sally, but I just can't do it. So, hi, Dr. Renzulli. Hi, Dr. Reis. How are you?
Hey, Matt. How are you? Thanks for having us.
I am still a little stunned that this is happening, and we are enjoying it, and I'm just swimming in imposter syndrome, and we're having a good time. Everybody knows you guys, but please tell our listeners who you are and what you do.
Well, basically, for the past 50 or so years, I've been a professor of educational psychology at the University of Connecticut with a special focus on creativity, giftedness, talent development. And before that, I was a teacher for several years. I taught middle school math and science, and that's pretty much about it.
Yeah, so ditto, with the exception of saying we're also parents of 2 daughters and a son, and grandparents of 3 wonderful emerging young people. That has been so much fun. I also will mention that our oldest daughter, Sarah, is neurodiverse, twice exceptional. She had severe case of dyslexia, ADD, and various other, types of challenges when she was young. She was a premature infant, lost oxygen at birth. So I very early became interested in smart kids with learning disabilities, and published some of the first research about that relative to success in college and how we should parent differently and how we should teach these students differently. And I'm proud of those efforts in the late 1990s and have been an advocate for twice exceptional neurodiverse kids ever since.
And the world is genuinely a better place for both of your work. I grew up as a gifted kid. I identified in second grade, and I didn't get diagnosed with ADHD till high school. But it wasn't until I got into the field and started doing this work professionally that I heard the term twice exceptional.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those, you read the article, you're like, well, that's me.
Mm-hmm.
And both of my parents, they're psychologists. Well, they went to University of Virginia. They were trained by Carolyn Callahan.
Mm-hmm.
So another person who knows a thing or two about assessment with bright kids. And I would say, if my parents didn't know it, then this wasn't some giant obvious thing that people knew and they just didn't get it. It's so great to see how much this term has gone out there, because it isn't just smart or learning disabled, right? There are those kids who are both.
Yeah.
Not that you and I know anything about that, right, Jake?
Not at all, whatsoever.
So, Joe, if you could take us back to the beginning, 50 years, what made you want to start this work?
It all goes back to the Russians and basketball.
I got to tell you, did not expect that answer. Okay, say more.
Well, the Russians fired this little thing the size of a basketball to become the first satellite to orbit the Earth. And American education went wild because we obviously didn't want to be outdone by the Russians. And so, again, I was a middle school science teacher, and the pressure was on, more science, harder science. And so the superintendent sent me a list of the names of all of the kids in the middle school with IQs 130 and above. And he said, would you do a Saturday program for these, quote, gifted kids in science? And he offered me an extra $100.
Let's go.
That was a lot of money in the 1960s, believe me. Anyway, I said, yeah, I'd be happy to do that. But because I was a general science teacher, I also had some kids in my science class that I knew were as good or better than the list of 130 IQ kids that he sent me. And so I started sneaking them into my Saturday class. You got to break a few rules if you're ever going to do anything important in this world. So they came and they did as well. In many cases, they did better just because they had a strong interest in science. And that's where my interest in interest grew. And I developed in later years a number of interestalizers. And that's how the task commitment got into the three-ring conception of giftedness. And so that's a little bit about what was the kickoff point. Obviously, the first question I asked myself is, where is the curriculum? And thank God there wasn't any. And so basically, I started having my kids, I didn't teach them more science. I had them do projects. And that's eventually what ended up being the guidelines for type 3. There are 4 major guidelines for type 3. Interest always leads the list. Anyway, the idea was to create or produce something, and that you would find the information that you needed. There wasn't any internet back then, but we had a good supply of science books, and we ordered plenty of new science books for our library. And so that's really what the kickoff point was for me. The other thing I found was that it was not an information giving strand of pedagogy. Most of what goes on in schools is information giving. You learn it, memorize it, take the test on Friday or the state achievement test. And so it was a little bit different pedagogy that eventually developed into a number of different articles that I wrote on the pedagogy of gifted education. When we're all done with this, I'll send you some files that have all of Sally's articles and my articles in it. You can certainly distribute that to as many people that are on any of the lists that you have for circulation of information.
Yeah, I would just add one thing. I think that, Joe's a very modest person, but the publication of the three-ring conception article in 1978, I think was a landmark change for children with disabilities, children who were from working class backgrounds, kids that attended lower SES schools or grew up in lower SES neighborhoods. I mean, before that, IQ is generally the only way you got into gifted education programs. And while lots of twice exceptional kids have high IQs, many of them also have high IQs in one area, so verbal versus performance, and the other area is depressed because of their disability. And so many of those young people would never have qualified for traditional gifted programs, as would many other young people. I think, much of the work that we've done in urban areas, low-income school districts, that's convinced both of us of the importance of flexibility and identification and the notion of above average ability, not necessarily superior ability, at least as measured by tests. So I feel like it was a landmark, important point in our field and in education in general as well.
It was a landmark in another way as well. There were 3 journals in Gifted Land back then, and all of them unceremoniously rejected my article. So I sent the article to the Kappan, which is a general education magazine.
At the suggestion of Paul Torrance.
Yeah, Dr. Torrance had the same problem.
Whoa.
Yes, when he was writing about creativity, and he said, Joe, send it to a general journal, and by the way, I've got another one in there now that I hope in the future will have the same kind of traction that the 3-ring article had. But anyway, Kappan published it, and a lot of administrators read the Kappan. And so I started getting more phone calls and interest. And the other thing was that because of the article, remember at that time, Gifted Land was controlled by the IQ gang.
Yep.
And they were not happy with my article. As a matter of fact, all of the reviewers of the 3 journals had turned it down. I think that getting something like that out, especially to administrators who are always getting phone calls from parents saying, hey, one of my kids in the gifted program and the other one should be, she's smarter than the other one, It got legs. It's now I say again, the most widely cited article in the field, and probably will be for a long time until something comes along that is DI or somehow related, but brain related. I'm not sure what. And so I feel pretty good about that. I had a lot of luck with the article.
I mean, luck is certainly part of it, I guess. But I mean, with the talent involved, I think the floor was pretty high. You just also reached the ceiling. I mean, I've gone to only a few American Psychological Association conferences in my life. We were in a discussion group about what are the 100 most important articles in the history of psychology. And, and of course they're talking about Harlow's monkeys, and they're talking about, Skinner, and right. Sure. Right. Those, they belong on the pedestal, but I'm the one who was like, well, what about Renzulli's 3-ring battle? And they were like, who? I'm like, don't you listen, it didn't stop with Terman. Okay.
Right.
We had his termites and we called it a day. Right. So it's amazing to me that in the field of psychology that primarily, probably by a lot of really smart people, they were like, well, but do we really think giftedness is a thing? It's like, why can't we not see it in ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had the good fortune to talk to Marty Seligman once, and Marty was like, oh, you're in the gifted world? He's like, Angela Duckworth does that too. He's like, I don't really see it. I was like, Marty, who are like a famously like controlling, rigid person with like significant sensory needs, is like, yeah, I don't really think giftedness is a neurodivergence. I'm like, you don't? You, Marty? You know? But I mean, you can only provide people the information and see what they're going to do with it, I guess.
Yeah, you would think though, with Sternberg and Gardner being so important in psychology, they would have had a little bit more of an influence. It's interesting that over time, I think our movement into more general education stuff, so school-wide enrichment model, wasn't uniformly loved by people in gifted education. And yet at the same time, that moved us, I think, a little bit closer to the general education researchers, scholars, individuals that were like, okay, let's see if we can adapt this for the whole school. Let's see if we can bring this in. It'll help our academically talented kids and our neurodivergent kids and our twice exceptional kids, but also it gives something for everybody else. So I think these things are connected. Free-ring conception, movement towards talent development, that really we've been, talking about for a long, long time. I'd like to think, we have some tentacles into general education now. Certainly a lot more people know about twice exceptional students. Like 30 years ago, you'd say that word and people didn't even know what you were talking about.
I mean, you were using me as an example for sure. I mean, going back to that first story, Joe, you going into the regular science classes and finding those kids. I mean, very early on in my career, because, obviously I know more of the mental health side than the education side, right? That's been the things I've had to learn along the way, which is why I partner with Jake, because he knows a lot more about that than I do. But early on, I was like, wait, so what we're talking about for gifted kids is just what's best for kids, right?
Yeah.
Leading with interest, building skills, not seeing what kids can't do, seeing what they can do, right? All of those things. Every time I go to one of these conversations, I'm like, gifted education is special education, but it's special education through a universal design model that it benefits every single kid in the school. And so it's like, and if the kids who are the highest flyers fly the highest, everybody wins. But if the kids who would struggle to read Hop on Pop or do the periodic table like it a little bit more, then we're putting more energy, putting more gas in the tank, and the car can drive further.
Yeah.
I see no downside there. Happier kids don't need to see me as much. That's also a good thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, it seems to me, I spent 5 years recently on a Javits grant studying twice exceptional students with autism. And I'm really proud of the work our team did. We interviewed 40 students, found them from all over the country, mainly contacting disability services, but we interviewed 40 students at extremely competitive colleges and universities, Ivy Leagues, NYU, USC type of places. And we interviewed them to say, okay, you're both autistic and you're identified as gifted and talented. What made a difference? How did you get to be so successful that you can function in a highly competitive college? And some of them were not highly verbal, but they were all smart and they had all made it. And the things that they said to us about school, everybody would just nod their head. Well, we had teachers that let us explore our interests. I had teachers in high school that let me do an independent study. I had teachers that let me change the assignment and do something I wanted to do. It's all what Joe and I talk about is strength-based pedagogy and SEM. And if you look at it, interest-based opportunities, reading on your own, working with peers, academic peers, not necessarily 2E neurodivergent peers, but the things that teachers did and the acknowledgement that they had talent. So back 30, 40 years ago, it was always about the deficit. And these 40 young people said, finally, somebody said to me, well, you're very talented too. You're very smart. And teachers were saying that as well as parents. So I think that we always talk about our work as being common sense. If I was in an elevator and somebody said, what do you do? What are you studying? And I said, I studied smart kids with autism that made it in competitive colleges, and they made it because teachers identified their talents. They let them work on interest-based projects. They modified their curriculum. They let them pursue their strengths. People would just nod and say, yeah, but it's not so commonsensical for everybody. So I think sometimes we need to be reminded of the impact of parents and teachers, particularly in providing these strength-based opportunities, looking at interests, looking at strengths, and not just paying attention to the deficit, but to the gifts as well.
I mean, one of my favorite stories about a twice exceptional person it's not the autism world, it's dyslexia and ADHD, but it's the celebrity chef Bobby Flay.
Mm-hmm.
So Bobby Flay, who's a senior in high school in New York, right? He's going to fail high school. He's going to fail high school because he can't do gym. I mean, how many of our kids hate gym, right? Jake and I met when we worked at the Grayson School outside Philly, and I never got more referrals for a school counselor other than gym class. Like, the kids would be lined up outside my hall, like, I have Ebola. I'm having a panic attack. It's kickball, guys. It's kickball. Let's breathe. But so Bobby Flay's school counselor was like, well, what are you going to do? He's like, I like cooking. And he's like, fine, cooking is very physically demanding. You can work in a restaurant and that'll be your gym class. And if you pass that, you pass high school.
Mm-hmm.
So Bobby Flay works in a restaurant, turns out he's great at cooking, passes high school, goes right into the culinary world. And now, I mean, he's a superstar.
Yep.
Imagine if that teacher had been rigid. It'd be like, no, you have to play basketball,
Yep.
hockey.
Mm-hmm.
Bobby probably fails high school, probably drops out. And who knows where the story goes from there.
And feels like a failure as opposed to feeling like a success. So, these two EASD students that I studied, somebody made them feel like a success at something. And that once you start to have a slightly different self-image of yourself, you start to believe you have talents, that you have capabilities, then things become possible that were never possible before. That's really, so much of what I try to say to parents when I talk to parents, or I try to say to teachers when I talk to teachers. When our daughter was in elementary school, and we knew how smart she was. I mean, she was so verbal. When they came back with her first achievement score test, I think in second or third grade, and she was at the second percentile, I just laughed because her vocabulary was better than anybody in her class and well beyond. And
second percentile, wow.
We're crazy. And, I just kept saying to her, you're smart, you have talents, you're going to figure it out. We're going to figure it out together. But finally, I brought Susan Baum to an IEP meeting with me. I'll never forget it. And, Susan was at the table with us, and she said, maybe 5 minutes into the IEP meeting, stop telling us what Sarah can't do. We already know that. She already knows it. Her parents already know it. Start telling us what she can do, what she's good at. And it completely changed the conversation of the IEP meeting. And I always think to myself, if Joe and I needed an advocate in an IEP meeting, you think about other parents going into an IEP meeting, parents of twice exceptional kids, of neurodivergent kids. But I love the question. Stop telling us what she can't do. Start telling us what she can do. What is she like? Who's the most enthusiastic teacher in this school? Who might be your mentor? I mean, there's ways to change the dialogue that really do change the dialogue. So I always like to remember that story and tell that to parents. Stop telling us what she can't do. We already know that.
Yeah, our colleague Del Sigley summarized in a phrase, stop being a deficit detective and become a talent scout.
I quote that all the time. And also, Del, when you inevitably listen to this, you give the best hugs in the world, my friend. I mean, he's got those like long arms. He just wraps all around you. I was like, oh, Del. I got to use the talent scout analogy. I worked with a kid. So I went to grad school at Widener University, which is in Chester, Pennsylvania, one of the poorest communities in the United States. It's analogous to sort of like Bridgeport in Connecticut. Mm-hmm. Surrounded by affluence and then also scary. And there was a charter school there, and they asked me to come in and take a look at these two kiddos. I saw the kid, it's like, this kid's brilliant. And through several machinations, we were able to get him a scholarship to a very elite prep school on the main line in Philadelphia, not Grayson. This school has a helipad because obviously all prep schools need a helipad. Mm-hmm. They've had multiple Supreme Court justices go through their halls. It's quite a fancy place. So this kid, to get to school, had to get up at 5 a.m, walk across Chester, Pennsylvania, a dangerous thing to do, take a bus across Pennsylvania to another bus, then walk 3/4 of a mile to get to school. And that's to start his day. And since they didn't do academic scholarships, they gave him an athletic scholarship because he was also a very good track runner. He ran the 110 hurdles. Mm-hmm. And they brought me in for a meeting, right? Because this kid, his year had gone in track, he'd gone first place, last place, first place, first place, last place, last place, first place, last place, first place. And the athletic director and his coach were like, why is he losing so many races? I'm sitting in this room, right? And now I'm not a small guy, but like everybody else is wearing like, bellies over their pants, right? And all these like overweight older gentlemen being like, "Oh, he's not fast." I'm like, first off, I'd like to see any of you make over a singular hurdle, let alone 110 meters of them.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, just as a note, guys, like it is harder to win a race than it is to lose a race. I'm more interested in why this kid won 6 out of 12 races rather than he lost the other ones. Because listen, any one of us could lose a race.
Mm-hmm.
He's winning them. And what it boiled down to is that was the mornings the kid was getting hot breakfast at school.
Yeah, he wasn't hungry. Yeah,
one time he was hungry. He's running out of gas in the afternoon, and then you're trying to get up the energy to run 110 hurdles at 4:30 in the afternoon when you didn't have breakfast. To their great credit, they all shut up and felt sorry, and that was a good thing, because I was pretty early in my career then, and I was like, I'm going to go out on a limb for this kid because I know I'm right, but that doesn't mean they'll have to listen to me. And that young man is I don't work with him anymore, but he catches me up every once in a while. He is currently crushing it in the college track scene, and we're very proud of him. But I mean, yeah, it would be so easy to focus on what he couldn't do.
Yeah, exactly.
But then when we appreciate what this kid can do, and then the context of who that child is, what his life was, something that these very affluent people could never understand. It was a powerful moment. That's why I tell that story so much.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of telling stories, Jake, I've been talking a lot. I apologize. You should jump in before I keep going.
You don't need to apologize at all. I love just like listening at times too. And one of the things that like you both brought up that I'm really curious about, especially being like a younger teacher and experiencing like the gifted world as a student growing up, is after writing and publishing your article and like it going out into the world a little bit, what kind of changes did you notice right away? And then what changes did you notice happening later over time?
Well, the right away changes were, as I mentioned, not accepting it to a professional journal, not being invited to speak at conferences on gifted. A person who had a big conference down south said, "Now, Joe, you can talk about program evaluation because that's your specialty." That was what my dissertation was on. But none of that 3-ring or enrichment triad. Do we agree upon that before you arrive? Because her home state of Georgia was a cutoff score state, and IQ was everything. And so those things happen. And I believe that there are lots and lots of ways of getting information out, especially in today's day with the internet and all of that. And I think that just getting information out, it's another point of view, is somebody is going to latch onto it.
Yeah, I think the immediate changes for the positive, though, Jake, were that we saw some of the rigidity in identification systems start to shift. And that's when revolving door identification model came out, which was really that never that kids revolved in and out of the program, but they revolved in and out of services. So kids wouldn't always be in type 3. Kids wouldn't always need counseling. Kids wouldn't always need to be having their curriculum compacted. Of course, some always will, super high achievers across the board. But I think that's when we started seeing some states start to loosen up on rigidity of identification, and some districts that were piloting enrichment triad model and revolving door. And that really kind of led to the evolution of school-wide enrichment model, which the first edition of that was published in '85. And that's where we really started to see the biggest changes. Districts that were adopting and using SEM all over the country. And of course, we run a summer conference. And so our largest years pre-COVID, we might have had 500, 600, 700 people. And we're happy to be back up to about having 300 teachers come and spend some time with us in the summer at UConn. But I think that helps spread the word too. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that since we weren't being invited to speak at conferences, we said, well, we'll start one of our own. And it got legs very quickly. It was one of those things. I would say, as of now, we'll probably have a Confortude alumni that could be approaching 40,000.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not a small number at all.
not a small number, especially in this field. And for all our teacher friends out there who've never been to Confortute, it's the best 5-day birthday party that's ever existed.
Thanks, Matt. We're so happy you could join us the last couple of years and this summer too.
Yeah, I'm mentioning a Confortute evaluation quote when I speak in California in a couple of weeks, and the quote goes,
With the possible exception of my honeymoon.
Yeah, with the possible exception of my honeymoon, it was the best week of my life, actually 2 weeks back then, actually. And I think that that Confortute has really done a lot for us, and we continue to do it as long as we can get up there on the stage.
Because it's so important to provide that professional development and that pedagogy to people who are already doing this work but don't know it.
Yes.
I remember talking to those teachers from Elizabeth, New Jersey, and I'm doing a PD with them in a couple of weeks. And they kept coming at me like, well, we're already doing parts of this. We were guessing. I'm like, well, people end up in this field because they should be in this field, right? They just have that wiring, those soft skills. And like, I was like, you've started doing it. Now here's where you take it from here. And I just think it's just this fascinating thing to watch that community grow and watch people bounce ideas off each other. Because it is, I mean, you guys know this. I mean, so many conferences are as dull as dirt, right? I mean, it's like you sit in the room, same recycled talks, people talk off their PowerPoints, and that's it. I've been to Confortute 3 years in a row, and every year is different. Every year it just organically feels.
Yeah, agree.
Well, and it does attract what I call positive malcontents, people that are just not happy with the canned curriculum. And we get more of that all the time. Common Core State Standards and this most recent thing, MTTS or something like that. Guess what? It's all disguised to teach the same thing to the same kids at the same time. And it takes away from the brand of pedagogy, which is at the other end of the continuum, the pedagogy that we advise.
So, Jake, if we don't name this episode Positive Malcontents, I mean, Jake and I usually text on Mondays like, God, what should we call this episode that we're releasing tomorrow? Done. This is it.
I love that phrase of Joe's. I mean, there's so many people that just are so disappointed at what they're being asked to do in schools, and, scripted reading programs and not letting kids be able to pursue their interests, and, the absence of the kind of extracurricular stuff. I've had people tell me that their principals say if they come by the room and kids are laughing, at doing something engaging or fun in the class, they get called on the carpet. I mean, come on. People are bragging to us about every kid in the district being on the same page of their math textbook, which is the most depressing thing. So, I feel like if we have to shake things up a little bit, it's time.
Yeah. It's amazing to me that like we somehow let administrators put both hands on the steering wheel, right? Because it's the educators, the people on the front line who know what their kids need. I mean, as a psychologist, I always talk to the teacher because they're the boots on the ground. They see the kid more than I do, sometimes more than the parents do. They know stuff I don't know.
Right.
And then we have somebody sitting in in an office be like, kids need more math. Just shout that into the universe.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Speaking of that, this new article I'm working on, this is a President Eisenhower quote: "Farming looks mighty easy when your plow is a pencil and you are 1,000 miles from a cornfield." I think that listening to people far away make these regulations, which, by the way, administrators love because they think that's how they exert control.
Yep.
But they're 1,000 miles from a cornfield. Well, teachers have been our best ideas have come from teachers. My best ideas, some of them came from visiting a teacher 40 or so years ago named Sally Reis in Torrington, Connecticut, and seeing the kinds of things that she was doing with kids.
And you were like, wow, she's really right. I should marry her.
That thought occurred to me.
And here we are, all these years, happily after.
Best class visit ever. I've done a lot of class observations. Can't say I've ever had that outcome. Oh, what a cool story.
I have a question from that too. Is what would you say like currently to a bunch of administrators who are in that kind of mentality? Because I've known so many where they're so removed from the classroom, they're not really talking to the teachers or engaging with like what the teachers are experiencing, and they think they know what's happening.
I would try to get them to come visit the Renzulli Academy with us in Hartford. It's a school that I founded with a former assistant superintendent of schools. And, it's funny when I was thinking about the things you might ask about today, and I thought about a thought that I'd want to leave people with. We started a school in Hartford. We brought kids in, not gifted and talented kids, but we took kids in that were, average to above average students that wanted to be there. We did no test prep whatsoever. And in 2 years, it was the highest scoring school in Hartford without any test preparation, because the kids are doing science fair projects, they're doing history day projects, they're doing type threes, they're following their interests. We're letting them read stuff they were interested in using school-wide enrichment model and reading. And so everybody thinks that if we let kids enjoy learning, that their scores are going to go down. If we let kids do passion projects or work on things that they have an interest in, that somehow, deep down the road, that the school will become lower achievement scoring. But really the opposite's true. When we let and encourage kids to do things that they love and give them time and space to do it, is so many other things benefit. And the other thing about being in this school is that they're happy. So I think administrators, many of them are well-meaning and they want to see another way forward. And I just wish that they could see the outpouring of joy that comes when kids are able to pursue active learning in areas of interest. So that's what I would say.
So anyway, I'm going to mention now this new article that I've written. I'm going to send to Kaplan, and it's called The 3 E's of Successful School Achievement. That's always important to administrators, so you put that up first. A counterintuitive approach to school improvement. And the 3 E's: enjoyment, engagement, enthusiasm for learning. And, I think that if you come to the Renzulli Academy in Hartford, you're going to say, why do these kids look so damn happy all the time? Now, wouldn't it be nice if kids looked happy? And one of the things that probably sometimes in the back of my mind is the best place to look for this in a school today is in extracurricular activities.
Specials like art, music.
The kids on the school newspaper, the kids on the soccer team, the kids that are doing some community service work. The 3 E's are always there.
And I think a lot of administrators get their ties in a bundle because it's like, well, kids should want to be here for my AP chemistry class. It's like, listen, in high school, I went for musical theater first,
right,
art class second, and history 17th.
Right.
I went because Kristen Jones, I won't use her actual last name, was in several of my classes, and I had the biggest crush on her in the world. And I was like, I get to spend 6 hours a day with her.
Mm-hmm.
If we focus on the things our kids care about,
mm-hmm.
and we bleed outward from there, everybody wins. And I think, people get scared because it's like, how do you measure joy? How do you measure a kid who wants to come to the building? And that's a much harder stuff to quantify than like, we have this score on this test. Our SAT scores are great. I remember I consulted with a school in Virginia. They were so proud that 63% of their third graders were in the gifted program. And I looked at them and they were so proud of them. I was like, guys, that means you're doing it wrong. Like, statistically speaking, it's impossible that 63% of your kids are in the top 2%. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't be doing the education you're doing. They were implementing the education properly, but their mode of identifying kids for this program was backwards. So it was like, you don't have to take any of these kids out of this education model, but you give the education model to everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the only feathers that ruffled were the parents. They were like, but my kid is special. As I am fond of saying, all kids have gifts, all kids are gifted. That's an important difference.
Well, really, that's the whole idea of the talent pool with SEM. Many places we should treat the whole school as the talent pool. And what Joe and I have talked about consistently is you label the services. Label the services. And once the services are clear, then you understand what the talents are. So, I think it's a really important distinction, labeling services as opposed to labeling kids.
And the reason why when we talk about the enrichment triad model, we always talk about type 1 and type 2, and the enrichment clusters are good for all kids. GFAC, good for all kids.
But not all kids are going to need compacting. Not all kids are going to need advanced level type 3s. Not all kids are going to need reading 5 grade levels ahead. So those services are what oftentimes lead us to understand the gifts.
Although I don't like the name revolving door, it is in fact from the general enrichment in type 1 and type 2 that children then turn on. Child A turns on something in history, child B something in math, child C something in science. They revolve into a type 3. They don't revolve in and out of the gifted program, but they revolve into a type 3.
And other advanced services too. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Let's move on with your questions because we've got a child to pick up in probably half an hour.
Well, that you took the words out of my mouth, sir. So we're going to ask our famous wrap-up questions. Jake, you got to take the lead on this one, buddy.
I'm so curious what they're both going to say, especially like everything, all the different words that have been dropping. But my question for both of you is, what's your favorite word and why?
Favorite word? Top one.
Well, I think, on the personal side of things, I think that love is my favorite word. I love to love Sally, my children, my friends, some of the things that we do. On the professional side, and I love my work, I might add that in as well. I think that something like engagement becomes an important word. When someone is engaged in something, they're generally having fun, or that they're at least feeling that something's going to come out of it. They're going to produce something, create something. Until I realized we had this meeting this afternoon with you guys, I was getting ready to get my bread making equipment out because I feel good. I want to make bread.
Yeah, I think my happiest word, it would probably be a toss-up between happiness and peace. I so worry that our world is not going to achieve peace. And I think that there's a state of mind about peace that so many people achieve as they're older and they understand what's important more and more. So I'd have to say peace, but happiness is a close after one. I'd love to see more people happy in this world. It's just we have so many blessings, and I don't think we always appreciate them. So great question.
Great answers too. Just saying.
Wow. Oh, I love bread making. Okay, I will not go down that rabbit trail. I'm pulling myself out of the skid. Okay, so my question is not the hard-hitting journalism of Jake's, but fun nonetheless. If you could have one superhero on speed dial, who would it be and why? Sally, we'll start with you on this one.
Jeez.
I'm so sorry.
It's funny because I thought maybe initially somebody like Mother Teresa, but she's gone. So superhero, I thought of Hermione Granger, but she's fictional. I even thought of Michelle Obama, but she won't run for president. So, I'd probably have to, I don't know. I'm going to punt it on that for a minute. Do you have an idea?
I can't.
Superhero on speed dial.
A Californian, his name is not coming to my mind right now, but he started something or other. Very challenging. It's not Bill Gates, although he would be up there because I believe that the best ideas in the world will go nowhere unless you take the steps to sell them, to promote those ideas. So, I'd probably want to talk to Bill Gates, but who's the other California guy that died recently is,
I don't know. I don't know where you're going with this, but maybe, the other Heather Cox Richardson kind of occurs to me right now because, she sits in the middle of the night. She writes her column for those of us that are unhappy with the current state of politics in the U.S., not to be too political, but there's a kind of, nobility in her historical column that brings, I think, a lot of clarity to a lot of people every day. So I'm going to mention her.
And the woman from New Hampshire and Maine that you like so much.
I mean, I like a lot of authors. I like a lot of poets.
Yeah, this is an author.
I don't know. Joe's punting on this one, so we'll probably have to get back to you.
I mean, we've got plenty of time, and we'll see each other this summer. I mean, we would have been fine with Hermione. Doesn't need to be real to be a superhero.
But I can't get her on speed dial. That's the thing.
That's true. That's true.
Who would yours be?
If in the fictional world, I was always a Batman guy because I liked Batman. I like Donatello from Ninja Turtles. I like people who use their brains because I was not exactly the most athletic kid in the universe. I mean, I know it's shocking information. So like Donatello from Ninja Turtles and Batman, like I like Spider-Man because like Spider-Man was like a regular kid and then all of a sudden he has superpowers, and it was like I was very drawn to those stories because like Superman's awesome, he's a paragon of virtue, but if the yellow sun gave me superpowers too, then I could do awesome things. Like there was something about the brains and brawn that always appealed to me.
Right.
I don't think anyone's ever asked us what's yours.
Yeah, Jake, what's yours?
Mine is super easy. Gambit, 100%.
Oh,
Always been my favorite.
All right, that is a gift. That is a gifted kid response right there. I love it. I had so many kids that when I was teaching GT, so many kids that were completely in love, obsessed with that heroine hero. Yeah, that's a great response.
All right. Well, I know you guys have to go pick up a grandchild and Jake's got to go teach a class. If you could send our audience home with a takeaway message, what would it be?
Oh, the takeaway message that is the most important to us is schools should be places to develop talents. Schools should be places for talent development. Schools should be places for teachers and educators and parents alike to develop talents. It shouldn't just be about, teaching stuff. It should be about looking actively for talents and developing them.
Yeah, I would agree. That's almost a theme of ours. The schools are places for talent development, especially these days when there is so much information that you can get on Google, ChatGPT, and places like that. We don't need to carry that information around in our brains anymore. We need to just know how to find it. I think that starting at a very early age, we need to provide lots of general enrichment opportunities and see which ones certain kids latch onto. And then we need to provide what we call the ORE, O-R-E, opportunities, resources, and encouragement for them to follow up on that, to produce something. And what they produce could be written, it could be artistic, it could be musical, it could be dramatic, it could be constructed. Look how popular Legos are, because kids are producing something. And our granddaughter got these little magnetic blocks in her playroom here. And when she comes, she starts to build something. And she said, look at Mommy, Grammy, I built a temple, or I built a skyscraper. And I think that Sally and I would be nowhere if we haven't produced things. Outcome, project, purpose, to me, are important words that we need to use. And I think also, again, in the 3 E's, enjoyment, not because even if you have to, it's something that you enjoy doing. We always do better when we're doing something we enjoy.
And like, we enjoyed this podcast. We enjoyed talking to you.
Thanks so much.
I mean, the honor was ours, truly. So I know we all have to run. So I'll do our quick wrap up. Thank you for learning with us and learning from us. And as always, for trusting us with your time. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye. Thanks so
Bye, guys.
much.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Nerding Out on Neurodiversity is brought to you by Dr. Matt Zakreski and the team at the Neurodiversity Collective. To learn more about the Neurodiversity Collective or to be a guest on the podcast, please visit our website at www.theneurodiversitycollective.com/podcast. Audio and production by Jake Noonan. Show your support by subscribing, leaving a 5-star review, and telling your friends about us. Our Instagram and social media handles are at #NoonPodcast, NOON podcast. Your support is appreciated and keeps us going. All discussions presented on this podcast are strictly for informational purposes, awareness, and understanding. The advice presented is not and should not be considered to be therapeutic in nature. If you have any mental health questions, please contact your provider. All rights reserved.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.